Howdy Commanders, Echo here. The New Year's 2021 update patch notes have dropped, and you know what that means. It's time for another edition of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly patch notes version. Up front, there's a little bit of good, and a lot of bad, and a lot of ugly. So, buckle in Commanders, the ship's going down. Deploy the lifeboats. Put on your life jackets. Woo! It's going to be gnarly. In the background for you today, we've got a couple of games. One's from the most recent ranked season, playing FARRAGUT with Shadow. He was in the Julio Cesare. This wasn't our last game, but it was nearly our last game, right near the tail end of the season, last couple of days, last a couple of stars. Check that out. Kind of highlights some of the highs and lows of ranked, if you will. And then after that, we've got a great game in the Shiratsuyu from earlier this week, kind of working my way through that boat on my way to the Akizuki. So, let's get into the good of the New Year's 2021 update. First thing on my list for the good is that there are 2 ships in the campaign. It's a 6-week campaign with 2 ships. It's also got the same 2,500 or 2,500 doubloons down payment with 1,250 back as a, sort of a rebate, if you will, from the campaign. So if you're salty about the Tokyo Express campaign, it cost 2,500 gold and we got 1,250 back, but there wasn't a ship. If you're in that camp, well, here you go. Here's a campaign for the same price as most normal campaigns that gives you 2 ships. So if you're really that butthurt about Tokyo Express, then you can just think of the Yahagi, the Tier 6 cruiser that's coming as the sort of bonus ship for this update. You can just think of that as the reward for Tokyo Express. It's just slightly delayed. Got lost in the mail. So, it's fine. When you include the stuff that came with Advent, this is just a little tangent. If you include the stuff that came for free with Advent for literally logging into a website once a day and clicking something, then I think that the Tokyo Express was just fine. All these people whining about it, just enough. But anyway, yeah, that's my number one good, or top, I guess. I'm kind of just going through the patch notes in order, but that's at the top or first thing on my list for good. That there are 2 ships in the campaign, yet it's the same price as any other campaign has been that comes with a ship. Tying into the campaign, I dig that it's a 3x2 type of Havoc arrangement, where each block of Havocs is 2 weeks long, and there are 3 of them for the 6-week total campaign. So it resets kind of every other week. This is sort of like the catch-up mechanic that they've done a couple of times, but not exactly. Check out that first blood there. But it's not exactly the same, but it does kind of give a little bit of leeway. If you've got a week here or there where you're going to not have that much time to get to the game, it does enable you to kind of catch up. Not quite as good as the, all of them roll over into the final week if you have to, but it's sort of like that, and I think that's kind of cool. At least they're experimenting with different ways that the Havoc can be rolled out. I appreciate that in the patch notes, they included a disclaimer that the Lenin cannot be had for free. There is no way that you can get Lenin without spending at least some doubloons. Now, I haven't broken it all down. We might get into that after the patch notes, or after the patch actually downloads, but you may be able to get it for free, quote unquote, if you buy the Admiralty backing. They weren't specific on if that is included in the for free, because you do get a couple more Santa containers, which give you some guaranteed coins that you can use to buy the Lenin, but I still doubt it. You're probably going to have to whale through, and I at least appreciate that they put a disclaimer right in the patch notes, like, yeah, you have to spend money to get Lenin. It's impossible to get it for free. Speaking of Santa crates, they're giving us some of the current 2020 Santa crates, or one, I guess, for free. Here's the code on the screen. Check that out. Go to the code redeemer, plug that in. You also get 3 Santa in red and 3 Santa in blue camos for doing that. Literally just typing in an alphanumeric code and hitting submit. So, hey, whatever. There's some decent stuff in those Santa containers. Again, keep in mind these are the last year's or 2020 containers. So feel free to check out what's available in those. Another item under the good column is that we're getting the armor viewer. We've only been asking for this, I don't know, since the game came out. I don't know why this wasn't a feature at launch, or at least in like full rollout. I know I can understand maybe not during the alpha and beta, but during the full proper launch of the game, why wasn't this included? They had the assets in the PC version. Some of the ships are slightly different, but for the most part, it's the same thing. The color coding and all that. I just don't understand why it hasn't been in the game for 15 months. But hey, we're getting it now. So for those of you that want to put in a little extra time checking out the weaknesses on your ship and the ships that you're fighting, that's going to be great. Now, one thing with this is my guess is it's going to be just like the consumables and that you can't actually look at the armor of ships you don't own. Hopefully I get to eat my words on that, and hopefully we can look at the armor of every ship in the game. But considering you can't even look at the stats of every ship in the game, Eagle, for example, there's no way through the game client to look at the Eagle's stats. Just a little hashtag Dear Wargaming. We need to be able to look at the stats, the consumable statistics, and the armor of every ship that any player can play in the game. Tiers 1 through Legendary, Premium, Tech Tree, etc. Whether we own it or not. Hopefully, this armor viewer allows us to look at the armor of every single ship in the game. I really doubt it, but hey, here's to hoping. Next thing on my good list is that the Italian Cruiser Smokescreen consumable is getting a cooldown buff. Nobody's going to play these ships still anyway, but hey, at least they're getting a buff, right? This is yet another admission by Wargaming that this line should not have come out when it did, that it was half-baked and underdeveloped. They've had to tweak it more updates than not since they came out. Feel free to check out my video on the channel about the Italian cruisers in particular. Frankenboats that they are. I don't think they're worth anything. I think they're a line without an identity. Slightly buffing the smoke consumable cooldown is not going to give them an identity. But hopefully this slight buff will encourage another 0.25% of people to play them who otherwise wouldn't. They're still not going to be worth playing in my opinion, but hey, at least they're getting a slight buff. Maybe if we nickel and dime these buffs to the Italian cruisers over 2 years with updates, they might almost maybe be worth playing by 2022. Next thing on my good list, and we are really scraping the bottom of the barrel here, Commanders, is that we're getting a new port. They said that there's lots of nature in this new port, which will be great for the glamour shots for video thumbnails. And it won't be a pink overtone to the entirety. You can't rotate the camera in any way that's not covered in pink. So, hey, you know, new port, that'll be fun. That'll be great. Hopefully it's not covered in airplanes. And lastly, on my good column, they're moving the premium ships out of the ships page to their own separate page. This is to prep for them having carriers as a whole new tech tree under most of the nations, and they need to make room for that. So they're kind of breaking up that workload across several updates. Echo, they don't say that in the patch notes. Yeah, think about it. Put two brain cells together. Hopefully there will be a little spark in between there. That's clearly the reason why they're doing this. So that's it for the good column. Hopefully you've noticed that we didn't touch on a whole lot that was actually in the patch notes. So let's get into the bad and the ugly, shall we, Commanders? First thing on my bad list is that we've got a time-gated bureau project coming this update cycle. Yay! That's great for the new players and your players that have yet to pick up the game. That's really nice for them to be able to get in on this bureau project. Oh, wait. Next on the bad column, we've got legendary ship rentals coming, Commanders. As if Tier 7 and legendary tier weren't trash enough, now we're going to have a bunch of scrub lords taking up the tier. That's great. And then we're going to have a bunch of people whining, I grinded for those ships and now they're gone out of my port. Wah! So get ready for that at the end of the update. They're clearly targeting the whales here because you have to use those icebreaker coins that are relatively hard to get unless you spend a lot of money. Yes, there are some available for free, but the majority of them that you can get, you have to spend money to get. We'll get into that in a little bit. But the fact that you have to rent these ships with this unique currency that could be much better spent, hint, hint, stomp, stomp, Commanders, on Admiralty items like your promotion orders, insignias, commendations, premium time, potentially some camos or whatever, you know, is normally under that Admiralty tab for the event currencies. Don't waste your money, well, your event currency, I guess, on these legendary ship rentals. Don't do it. They're just trying to, this is literally what this is. I'm going to unmask this for you. They are trying to get you to pay for them to collect data. That's why these ships are on rent. They want to make sure that this is much like last year at the same time, this is 12 months ago, they had the Yamato test event as a precursor to Legendaries period. Well, now they want to test these 3 ships. They're kind of in an alpha testing phase, but they want to collect data on them. Hey, I have an idea. We're a skeezy business that wants to make money off of the whale player base to get them to give us test data. It's just sickening. Do not spend your money to get these coins, and if you do, do not use them to rent these ships. Do not give Wargaming the satisfaction of getting your hard-earned money in order to give them data. That's what they have alpha testers for. That's what the Boop Troop is for. Don't give them your money to buy these icebreaker coins, to rent these ships, to give them data. Just don't do it, commanders. Next under the bad column is the fire meta. Now, I appreciate that they tried to address this. So that's kind of it's a good and a bad here. It's good that they're trying to address the fire meta, but the way in which they did it is bad. This is much like the secondaries with this current update. This is not the way to do the fire meta. It's not the answer. Commander skills are not the way to fix the fire meta. Here's a quick rundown. Not going to get into too many details of it, but here's a quick rundown on how to actually fix the fire meta. Reduce the damage that each fire tick does. 2. We need to have some sort of fire damage saturation mechanic. What is still burning on your ship when you've taken 40,000 fire damage? There's no fuel or ammunition left to burn. There isn't that much wood on a World War I to World War II era fighting vessel. 3. Limit all the ships to 2 fires or 2 floods, 1 fore and 1 aft. 4. Enable battleships to actually kill cruisers. And number 5, give the Germans and the Italian-Japanese Navy battleship commanders not one for the nuisance in slot 1. It's despicable that they don't have it, and it's quite sickening. If you did 2 or 3 of those 5 things, you'd fix the fire meta. Now, tying into the fixing of the fire meta, again, commander skills are not the way to do it. You're going to sacrifice too much. It's much like the secondaries where you sacrifice functional battleship commander builds for what? Countering the fire meta? It's not the way to go. But I do appreciate, this is sort of also under the good column, that Equilibrium of Power is getting nerfed. I knew it would. I called it a couple updates ago when they first introduced that Equilibrium of Power skill to Legendary tier and changed how it worked. I knew they were going to have to eventually nerf it. I'm happy to see that they are. I don't know what by 50% means. We'll have to see what that actually means. I'm sure we'll do a video on it, or at least touch on it in a video. But bottom line is Equilibrium of Power is getting nerfed. It's reducing the fire chance if you take that Equilibrium of Power skill. That's great. Happy to see that. Unfortunately, I don't think it's enough to really fix the fire meta. See my rant from 2 minutes ago on how to actually fix the fire meta. Similarly, the Fight Fire with Fire skill affects floods. Why? We're addressing the fire meta, not the flood meta, but why does this skill affect floods? It makes you're nerfing destroyers and cruisers that have good torps? I don't understand. You're even nerfing German battleships. You're literally nerfing some of the ships you're trying to help by having Fight Fire with Fire affect flood ticks. Doesn't make any sense. And lastly, I actually originally had this bullet point under the good column, and then I thought about it for like another half of a second, and I scratched it out and added it to the bad column. The Tier 7 service cost is going down. At first I was like, well, that's good. You know, you can actually potentially make more money at Tier 7. It can be a money-making tier, much like Tier 5 and 6. And then I was like, wait, but that's just going to mean more Scrub Lords are just going to play Tier 7. They're not going to get punished by doing poorly. They're going to play their Tier 7 premiums even more. And Tier 7 is going to be even that much more cancer. Even after this update going forward. It's going to be cancer because of the legendary ship rental thing that they're doing for this update. But even beyond this update, reducing the Tier 7 service cost is going to make Tier 7 that much more cancer. And by extension, Tier 6. Yay! So that'll about do it for the bad column. Now let's get into the ugly stuff, commanders. I've got 3 bullet points on this, but they're pretty hefty, pretty meaty bullet points. So my first thing under the ugly column is this whole Icebreaker coins, Icebreaker Havoc thing. particularly those Icebreaker Havocs. They're accessible only after you've finished the regular Havoc for the campaign. So if you whale through it, you have access to an additional 6,000 event currency that those of us who are just going to buy the Admiralty backing and play the Havoc as normal do not have access to. This, and then you stack this with the Lenin, and the Lenin costs these Icebreaker tokens, and the rental thing, and they're really popular, and it's, you know, this super popular ship from PC that Reddit is covered in posts of, I'm going to buy it on day one. I'm going to buy it on day one. This is sickening, Commanders. I can think of no other word. They're trying to kill the game. They're trying to kill the game before aircraft carriers come in, which will for sure kill the game. But they kind of recognize, they see it on the horizon. We touched on this with the Azure Lane Round 2 video, and I'm going to harp on it again. They see the writing on the wall. They know that they're going to lose a huge chunk of the player base. And a game is only as good as its player base. It doesn't matter that you've got a couple of whales. If the player base starts to take a hit, then a couple more people are going to leave because the player base sucks, and then more people are going to leave, and more people are going to leave. And you can't maintain a player base of a couple thousand whales for a game like this. It's not sustainable because people are just going to keep hemorrhaging and hemorrhaging and hemorrhaging out of the player base. The PC version is going through this right now, and our version on console is just going through that same death rattle in an accelerated rate. And this is a clear sign of it. This is a symptom of that disease, if you will. Is this whole, like, we're going to tie the event currency into whaling through the Havoc and give you 6,000 more event currency that you can then use to rent these ships that are allegedly super desirable, even though they don't look that good to me, but whatever. This whole thing is just sickening. The Lenin can only be gotten if you absolutely spend money. There's no way to get it for free, etc. They know the player base is going to take a huge hit. They're trying to milk the people that are still around for as much money as they can during every update cycle before the carriers come out. And it's just sad. Please don't whale through the campaign to give them the indication. You know, vote with your wallet, basically. Don't signal to Wargaming that this is okay. Next on my ugly list, I'm just going to read you a quote out of the patch notes. And then I'll let it sink in for a second. Quote, not assigning it a numerical value. This is in reference to the super prize mechanic and how it's just a tax on the whales. Whoop-de-doo, you can get a bunch of gold. You know how incredibly rare that's going to be? You think getting a ship out of a big crate is rare? Yeah, this is so incredibly rare they're not going to put a value on it because they know if they do put a value out there, no one's going to buy it. People are going to see that 1/1,000,000% chance or whatever it's going to be to actually get that quote-unquote super prize, and they're not going to bother. And one of the super prize mechanic rewards is a year of premium. Well, those of us that have basically never bought premium time and have over 100 days of it should be smart enough to recognize that a year of premium is not a worthwhile prize for this. Sure, the 100,000 doubloons is pretty cool. I will grant them that. But that should be the super prize mechanic, is 100,000 doubloons, and that's it. And if you roll the super prize, there it is. They should also be putting the percentage chance of getting that super prize mechanic in their containers page on their website. I encourage Wargaming to have their attorneys check into this for EU customers in particular, because I'm pretty sure that they're required to include those percentages in their posts on their website if they're selling these containers for money. If they're giving them away through mechanics through the game, that's different. But if they're selling them for money, I'm pretty sure they're required to, under EU legislation, to post those. So it's just a tax on the whales. Again, this is tying into the whole icebreaker coins thing. Again, they're just trying to milk the whales for all they're worth. People are going to see, ooh, I could pull 100,000 doubloons. And you know what it's going to be? It's going to be, there's an extremely low chance to even get the super prize, and then if you do get the super prize, it's going to be like a 99.99 chance that you then get the year of premium time. Because premium time literally doesn't cost them anything. there's no loss, except maybe selling premium time, but they give away so much premium time through crates and bureau projects and campaigns anyway that you can just play the game and have premium time. You don't have to buy premium time. They're not making any money off of premium time. It's literally a yes or no on your account, whether you have it or not. But if they give people 100,000 doubloons, that's 100,000 doubloons that you didn't swipe your credit card for. So that does actually cost them money. So the chance to even get the super prize is going to be incredibly low. They've admitted it in the patch notes, so I'm not saying anything they haven't already said there. And then my hunch is that even if you do pull that super prize, those of you that do pull it are overwhelmingly going to get the year of premium and not the 100,000 doubloons. And lastly, under my ugly column, this is probably the biggest ugly. I don't know. The first two I just mentioned are ugly in a like economics, taking advantage of the player base way. This last one is, I think, more ugly, but in a like hurts the game kind of way. And that's the ranked season 9. Oh my gosh. Hey, we just admitted during the last ranked season from the last patch, the patch that's still going on when we're dropping these patch notes, that the way we run ranked isn't any good. And I know Echo put out a video telling us how we could fix ranked, and those ideas are probably pretty good and we should totally do them, but we saw that video and we're actually going to take some of those ideas and like distort them and pervert them and make them the opposite of those ideas because we think it's opposite day, and that's how we fix ranked. We're going to take the one mechanic in ranked that sort of made it almost okay for players who are good to maybe tolerate playing through ranked, that save a star mechanic for the top player. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to make it 5-on-5. We're going to make it 1 DD per team. Oh, why are we doing that? 1 DD per team, tier 5. Oh, that's because T61 isn't selling enough lately. So we got to bump up our T61 sales. So we're going to make a rank 5 or a rank season tier 5 and only 1 DD per team. It's a 4-week season that's going to be as many stars. It looks like at least 16 ranks. I can't imagine them being that many fewer stars as this last season, probably 50-ish ballpark. And for what? For what? Some event currency that can only partially go towards the ship? Again, like they took my ideas and perverted them. I know they had these patch in the works before that video launched. I get it, but it's just like hilarious that I dropped that video like a week ago, and then these patch notes come out talking about ranked, and they're sort of implementing some of those ideas, but in a perverted, twisted way. It's just hilarious to me. So I'm going to take bets right now, put them in the comments below, that they're going to have to hotfix this rank season just like they did the last one in some way. They're going to have to up the player count to 7, or they're going to have to up the DD count to 2, or something like that. They're going to have to take out some of the maps. I don't know. They're going to have to do something. Eliminate some of the stars. I'm not sure. But bottom line is, don't play this rank season. Much like I'm encouraging you not to give them your money. Don't whale through the campaign. Don't buy a bunch of Santa crates to get those icebreaker tokens. Don't rent the legendary ships. Also, don't play ranked. They're doing things to ranked that are hurting it. They admitted during Season 8 that they have screwed up ranked and they don't know how to make it any good, and they have to hotfix it in the middle of the season. And then they're going to implement changes that make it even worse, that are going to make the matchmaker even worse. Don't play ranked. Don't give them the satisfaction. Hurt their numbers. Demonstrate that this is not how you fix ranked, by reducing the player count and reducing the DD count and getting rid of Save a Star. Oh my gosh. Anyway, that was a lot of bad and a lot of ugly. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, Echo, why do you make such salty videos? Why do you play this game if you don't like it so much? This game can be so much fun. It has so much potential. The historical implications, it gets people interested in these ships and the men that fought on them and served on them, gets people interested in researching this stuff. There's a lot of good that can come from and of this game. Helps people make friends all across their respective countries and across the planet. I've got friends from across the country and across the planet through this game, and there's a lot of potential in this game, and it hurts basically to see a game that I like to play, that I've made friends through, just get driven into the ground. And it's like patch notes after patch notes after patch notes. The game is just getting driven into the ground, driven into the ground, driven into the ground. So that's why I make these good, bad, ugly videos. I wish that they would be more good. A couple of them have been pretty heavy on the good, but this one is unfortunately heavy on the bad and heavy on the ugly. Thanks an awful lot for listening, everyone. I greatly appreciate it. And as always, stay salty, Commanders.